Welcome to the Pathfinder Legacy Podcast, where we help farmers, ranchers, and business owners create a seamless tradition plan for the future. From retirement to ownership transfer, we protect what you've built and guide you every step of the way.
Welcome, Martin and Linda.
Thank you.
We're excited to be here visiting with you guys today and hearing a little bit about our family heritage and history. I've heard a lot on the German side of the family. I'm German, so I've heard all those stories, but it's really fun to hear on the Norwegian heritage and the things that you guys did growing up and the different traditions that you had. I mean, I know what we did as German. We were just talking a minute ago about that wedding whiskey or that wedding... We called it red eye, and it was Everclear or burnt sugar, and that's what we served at all the weddings. Although you guys probably haven't had anything like that on the Norwegian side, have you?
Akavit.
Akavit. Okay.
And I don't know exactly what that was, but my grandfather, of course, everybody ate lutefisk, and he said the only way to eat lutefisk was you had a shot of whiskey when you started, and you had another one when you finished. And I've never tried that, but that was his theory anyway.
That was his theory. It helped. It was like the medicine that helped it all go down.
I guess so. And he wouldn't eat corn off a cob because he said you feed corn cobs to the pigs. Take a sharp knife and slice it off and eat it with pork.
There you go. Oh, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, well, I was only 6 months old when he died. There is a picture of him holding me, and I would imagine I probably wept on him.
He was going to hold you just for pictures.
Just for a picture. Yeah.
That was going to be it. Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's start back from the beginning a little bit. Well, not quite far back to being a twinkle in anybody's eye, but
6 months.
Yes. Let's go back to Martin, how you are related to Kirk.
His mother is my first cousin.
Okay. And talk about how big of a family it is.
Well, I think there were 8 sisters and a brother in the Hogan family. And Ivor, the brother, never did marry, but the girls had anywhere from 3 to 5 kids. So we grew up with a lot of cousins, and we would gather on the 26th of December. And we would have all the families, 8 families, and my grandma and Ivor, and 30 odd kids. So it took a big house.
Mm-hmm. Was there a house big enough to have everybody in?
Two of the families had pretty big houses. They did meet at our house one year. We had moved to a different house where, believe it or not, we actually had a propane furnace and we had indoor plumbing. But there wasn't any extra room in our house. It was 1,000 square feet, but a lot of the kids spent time in the basement.
Well, you probably, with that many people in a small space, you didn't need to have the propane furnace running very much.
No, it didn't run that much. No.
You had enough of heat that was coming from everybody else, and probably all the cooking that was going on.
A lot of food.
You want to talk about some of those first memories at the holidays and the type of food what were some of those good traditional food?
Well, there was always lepsa and turkey, ham, different kinds of vegetables, different kinds of salads, maybe a couple of different kinds of pie, 2 or 3. But everybody brought some food, so there was a lot. And the 8 brother-in-laws would always sit around a table and spend the whole afternoon playing cards. And I don't know, they called it rap rummy, but it was played for money. And I doubt if anybody ever won or lost more than $3 or $4 in a whole afternoon.
Okay. So it wasn't a high stakes card game or anything?
No, it was just fellowship. There were 8 brother-in-laws and they all got along very well, which was kind of amazing.
That is
and really amazing when you consider that one of them was a Dane and one of them was a mutt. He was German, Irish, I don't know what else, French, but he fit in with everybody else.
Yeah. He just rolled with the punches.
He did.
Okay.
And how many of those do you remember were first generation? Because I know Grandpa was first generation. Do you remember?
I think one of them, his dad and half brothers came from Missouri, Howard Ross. And then there was the two Kilbride brothers. They were half brothers of Howard Ross. They came up from Missouri. But I'm not sure about the Lockways, but I think all of the Norwegians, all their parents came from Norway, and maybe grandparents.
Yeah.
Okay. And then homesteaded.
Yeah.
In the Northwest. So for the listeners, we're in Northwest North Dakota, and we are actually north of Williston, where the homestead was. How many miles north?
We were 30 miles north.
30 miles north of Williston.
Most of them were west of us, but about that far north.
Okay. So
some Kirk's grandfather would have been southwest of there, but not that far, 10, 12 miles.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it went from Dagmar to Bone Trail to Yanks to Brunor.
Yeah.
So within that radius, everyone, all 8 families were very close.
Yep.
With all the cousins.
Yep. After they invented cars, they could have left, but before that, they couldn't go anywhere.
They were too scared to leave, maybe.
Well, they all farmed.
Yeah.
So that's the way it was.
Every single one of them farmed.
Everybody farmed.
And what do you suppose the average size of their farms were?
Grandpa was 3/4.
He had
Three
three quarters. We farmed. We owned a quarter and rented another couple of quarters. And then my dad rented 3/4 along with his brother. So nobody farmed a lot. I think the most that anybody farmed, one of them had 800 acres.
Okay.
That was 5/4 city. And some of that was pasture.
Okay. So it wasn't all cropping work.
No.
And at that time, how did harvest look? And the field work? Were you?
Well, you summer followed half. Everybody summer followed half. And at one time, you straight combined everything. Then it went to where you swathed everything. And nobody had any, there were no what you call a big combine. Everybody ran about the same kind of machinery, the same size combines. If you had one truck, the first truck we had hauled 160 bushel. Didn't have any reason to have anything bigger.
Right.
I remember Grandpa didn't have a combine because Gerald, his brother-in-law, combine.
Yeah, there was a guy
Custom cutting.
Yeah.
13 miles north of Williston, farmed his whole life, never owned a combine. You could always hire somebody, or neighbors would help, or you'd trade off. Maybe you'd drive truck and haul all his grain for him when he was cutting, and then he'd come and do your combine.
Okay. There was a lot more of the, what did they call them? Did they call them like farming parties or
Well, farming bees are
farming bees?
that's for illness, but no, they just help each other. They don't do that anymore.
No, if somebody got behind, they'd come and help him finish combining. They'd help him finish seeding. I remember one of my uncles, Al Lockway, he cranking his tractor and it kicked back and broke his arm. So the neighbors came and put his crop in for him. Things like that.
Okay. So there were some of those things with a little bit farming bees, not exactly how we see like
It's the
with
way
farm
it should
aid.
be, but it's not.
I-
It used to be, and it was fun.
Well, it isn't
Not
that,
everybody's so big, and you don't have time.
and it's certainly unfortunate because then you don't really get to know your neighbors as much or their families because everybody, yes, you have technology and you could see what your neighbor's doing without even sitting with them, but you don't get the camaraderie that you had at that
And
time.
it's what they call it now when you listen, you go talk to speakers and they say your competition.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's your neighbor is now your competition. They call it. It's not your neighbor anymore. They call it your competition.
Yeah. And it shouldn't be that way.
No,
We
it shouldn't.
It should all be working together and learning from each other on what works and what doesn't work.
Well, I visited one time. This was a man that was a neighbor to our family, my mother's family, the Hogans. And they all went to school together. And I asked him one time, I said something about the good old days. And he said, I'll tell you what was good about them. Everybody farmed about the same amount of land. Nobody tried to take any land away from your neighbors. you had neighbors and you all got along. That was what was good. He said, and everybody had to work very hard to make a living, but you were all in the same boat.
That's right. So at that time, and everyone was diversified, would you say, with both livestock and
Oh yeah, everybody milked some cows.
Did you guys milk cows?
Sure.
How many head did you milk?
We milked, I think at the most, maybe 5. And then first you had bucket calves, you fed the calves. Usually you'd buy a few extra baby calves and feed more. And usually buy some weaner pigs. You had skim milk to feed the pigs. So we didn't buy much. We had chickens. Every time we came to Williston, we would have 24, 36 dozen eggs and a couple of cans of cream and go to the co-op market. And they would take the eggs, buy them from you, and then you go to the creamery, pick up your check, and we always had money left over from the groceries. And that was with 4 kids, 6 people to feed.
Too, at that time, you were doing a lot more everything what you were raising. You were also using to help feed your family for just those extras that you went to town to buy.
A certain amount of money you had to have. You had to buy flour, sugar, salt, pepper, coffee. But we never had bought bread, ever.
No. But I tell you what, that homemade bread that I even remember from my grandma's making was some of the best bread. You can't find bread like that anymore. So your mom probably did a lot of that home cooked by hand baking. Do you guys cook like that today? Do you do any of the from scratch?
I do.
No, he cooks, I bake.
Oh, there you go. That's a fair trade-off.
Well, that's what I figured.
Yeah.
I get to eat what I want.
Make the way he likes it.
That's right. That's right. Is he a good cook? Would you say he's
Okay.
He's a good cook, and she's a good baker.
I don't really eat much baked stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, much better than having to buy it at all in the store.
Oh, I think it's better. Yeah, it would be.
So who does it? Who gets to do the dishes?
Mrs.
Oracle is do the dishes.
It was Mrs. Maytag before, but
She retired.
we had a little house problem and we moved.
There you go.
Yeah, her hairdryer decided to set fire to the house. Yeah, well, could have been worse. Could have been my fault.
Well, she's out the door now and Whirlpool's yet, so you can hang on to her for a while. So what would you say a typical day looked like growing up when you were in the field working, whether it was helping your dad or did you help your mom at all around the...
I helped with the milking. My mother and I did the milking. Dad never milked.
Okay. And it was milking by hand.
Oh, of course.
You did not have even any sort of electric.
Nope. Had a cream separator. That was it. No, you milk by hand.
Okay. How long does it take you to milk 5 cows?
Oh, maybe an hour.
Not too bad. So you and your mom did the milking.
Yep.
And then you would also help your dad in the field with the farming.
Yep.
Tending to any of the other livestock.
Usually whole grain during harvest. So I don't remember how old I was when I started driving a truck. Started driving a combine when I was 14. Well, and grain earlier than that.
No, you gotta say when you started driving a truck, you were 16. They don't want them coming back on you.
I got driver's.
No disclosure, no arresting or for driving.
I got a driver's license when I was 16.
Okay.
But you didn't need a license to haul grain in the field anymore than in.
Yeah.
I guess. So anyway, that's the first time I actually remember driving a vehicle was when I was 6.
Mm-hmm.
And we were building tents and I go to pick up along the fence line.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't much driving, but I was 6.
Would you learn how to
Sure.
sitting on a
No, if you just sat up and hung onto the steering wheel.
There you go.
You just drove in first gear.
You weren't going to go.
You didn't do anything. You just made it feel.
I just drove a little ways and I stopped. Step on the clutch, then step on the brake.
Okay. You learned how to drive a stick at that time.
Sure.
There were no.
Everybody did.
What was your favorite thing to do on the farm?
Oh,
Picking rock.
yeah, I didn't mind. We picked rock by hand.
I think Marvin Ole would beg to differ on that, George.
For a lot of years, we picked by hand with a 16-foot long trailer, or wheel trailer with 1-foot sides, and I suppose it was 2.5, 3 feet wide. My mother and I would pick rock all day. Then we'd pull up to a rock pile, and when we counted, we would count the rocks and we threw them off. And at the end of the day, she'd tell me how many rocks we picked that day.
Okay.
And we did that all day long.
And did you ever pick more than her, or she?
We didn't, about the picking, we just unloaded.
Okay.
Uncounted it when we unloaded.
Okay.
And then behind the wagon, we had a sled sort of on runners. And the ones that were too big to pick, we rolled onto that and then sold them all by hand.
A lot of backbreaking work, especially out in the heat. Didn't matter what type of weather we had, if the wind was blowing or the sun was shining or raining.
No, that was usually about maybe 2 weeks in the spring, maybe 3, where you picked rock. And everybody did. Nobody had rock pickers.
Right.
You picked it by hand.
So it's one of those chores that everybody in our area has to do because there's always rocks around.
We don't have rocks like that.
It feels like it. So
Our worst field is probably their best field.
yeah.
We
It's
had
rocks.
we had some land that when we did get a rock picker, one of those that pulled out to the side. I don't know how wide the grate was on it, maybe 3.5 feet wide, and what the bucket would hold, but it would take you an entire day to pick 20 acres.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so before that, you did that by hand.
So,
And I didn't, when we go out and stay at Grandma and Grandpa's, when you saw the rock piles, and there's rock piles. And you couldn't believe it. Where all these rocks come from? So anyway, then you talk to Grandpa and it's like, what are you doing this fall? I'm picking rocks. Well, that's only going to take a day. And no, I hit 3/4 and it would take him weeks
we used to pick
to go pick rocks, because he'd go pick rocks. And that was only half of it. Just what he found.
No.
And then
And the frost kept pushing you up.
Yeah. And then every season comes back around again. You're back out doing the same thing because of the frost.
See, now with no tail, it's, you're not pulling them out anymore with your machinery. So you still got to pick.
Yeah.
But not nearly as many.
Well, it depends on what you're seeing.
Why didn't you invent a roller back then? You wouldn't have to cross. It's just,
I couldn't invent. Yeah, well, we have a member of our Oddfellows Lodge here that's 98 years old, and he still picks rock for his son. And he never farmed. He was a parts man. But he likes driving a tractor, so in the spring and in the fall, he picks rock.
Okay.
it was probably your story that was said about the guy that came to look to buy a quarter of land. And the guy goes, well, I see these other guys have all their rock piled. Why aren't yours? And he said, you said because they're too lazy, they didn't spread them out.
Yeah. They hold the moisture in the ground and the birds sit on them and fertilize. So he said, well, how come those are in a pile? He said, they haven't had time to spread it yet.
Oh my gosh.
That's what real estate salesmen will tell you.
Sounds like a used car salesman.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, I was a county commissioner for 12 years. And I said from the beginning, the only place you could hear more lies than at a planning and zoning meeting from developers would be at a horse sale.
What horse are you buying today?
Well, and every horse that came in had been ridden at least 5 times.
Sure.
Now, they didn't say for how long, and they didn't say if he'd been drugged or not, but he'd been ridden 5 times.
There might not have been some ace chromosome given out there. Yeah. All right. What was your favorite thing to do for fun growing up?
Growing up, play softball, play baseball, 4-H meetings, things like that.
What did you do in 4-H?
Well, you always had projects, like if you were going to have to be the one that mowed the yard anyway, you had home beautification, photography. I like taking pictures.
There you go.
Did some leather tooling, leather work and stuff.
Okay. Did you do any animal projects?
No, I didn't.
You got enough of those working with your
Well,
dad?
we did. I didn't know anything about showing livestock. I knew a guy one time. He's older than me, hardly, but he was in Korea, and he said we didn't know anything about what kind of a beef, what kind of a calf you should show. So I showed one at the fair. And he said when they got done, the county agent said to him, I want Cliff to bring his calf out here. And he said, I thought I had won. But he pointed out everything that was wrong with my calf. And he said, I went from really feeling good about myself to being really deflated. And I thought to myself, that's an awful thing for a county agent to do.
Yeah, that's not showing very good leadership and teaching those members how they can learn from things instead of, say, doing it public shaming.
But they do a lot better now.
Yeah.
The kids are very more aware of it. And in that case, this was probably back in I'd say the 1940s.
Yeah, when that happened.
And the county agent was new.
Just learning, still wet behind the ears.
Yeah, I think he learned.
Yeah. If not, I'm sure there were some parents that made sure he learned.
Yeah, probably.
Who influenced you the most growing up? And what did they teach you?
Oh, I think my dad with a work ethic. And I had a neighbor that I admired for the way he farmed. And then he quit farming and became an accountant. So I thought that was quite a deal. So that was what I planned to do, was be an accountant. But I was in the middle of my junior year in college and my dad died. And so I didn't have any choice but to farm. We were renting. The place we lived was rented along with the farmland. And I had a mother and two sisters in high school. So I became a farmer.
So by default, coming in and helping to pick up the pieces from where your dad left off, carrying on that family legacy because you still had to help provide for that caregiving and helping to provide for your mom and your sisters and making sure that the farm survived.
Yeah. So after 45 years of that, I said, well, I think that's enough.
Yeah. You've put your time in. So 45 years farming and you're still living there. You and Linda still live close by.
Yeah. We moved a little bit closer to Minnesota and a little bit closer to Canada.
Not very far.
Not very.
So to the northeast.
Yeah.
A little bit. But now you're renting out your farm. You're not farming anymore.
I kept the quarter that his great grandmother and my grandmother homesteaded when she came from Norway.
Okay.
I kept that quarter. I sold the rest of it to my stepson and grandson.
Okay. And they are farming?
They rented out.
Okay. But what it's a legacy to have. So where your mom and your grandma, they homesteaded.
No.
My grandmother and his great-grandmother.
Great grandma.
She homesteaded a quarter.
Homesteaded. And they came over. What's the history on that?
Well, you could get a quarter of land if you put a building on it and lived on it, and you had to break 11 acres, 10 acres of land and live there for 3 years, I think. And then you would get a title to it. So she did. You can still tell where her homestead shack was. And I asked my aunt one time, one of the last ones that was still alive, how did your mother meet your father?
Mm-hmm.
And if you went straight west from where her homestead shack was, there was a little town called Gladys. And there was a store there, and that was where she met her husband, was at the store in Gladys.
Okay. Exchanging goods.
So she would have had to walk 3 miles to get to that store. And then I think sometimes she could catch a ride home if she was lucky. And they lost that quarter in the 1930s. They borrowed money against it and lost it. And then it ended up being owned by a banker in Iowa, and then by his son, then by his daughter-in-law, then by their daughter in California. And in the meantime, we had, in about 1961, we were able to rent it. But before that, it was rented to other people. And there was never anything broke beyond that 10 acres. But then it got fenced and was pasture and put a dam in for livestock. So then I got to rent. My dad rented it, then I got to rent it. And then the lady in California wasn't paying the real estate taxes, and it was going to get sold for taxes. And I found out about it, so I called her. And she said, I don't have the money. And I said, well, I'll send you the money if we can use it as a down payment, and I'll buy the land. So that was the first land I bought. I was 50 years old.
Wow.
And I had to borrow the money to buy it. I didn't have enough money.
But to get that money, to get that land back into the family.
Yes, I didn't get the minerals. So
Okay.
I had to borrow the money to buy the land, but I couldn't buy any minerals. I didn't have any money.
At least you got the original.
But we did get it. So I've kept that.
So the original farmhouse that was there, you said you could still kind of see. Is
You
it
can
just
see-
like the foundation or the
No,
cornerstones?
there's just kind of a dip.
Same as our place.
Yeah.
And there must have been another little building because just a little ways away, there's another dip in the prairie.
I find that very interesting that no matter what, those buildings have been gone for a long time and you can still see the depressions in the
Yeah.
ground because we have a place where before they put our house in and we mow it,
Original homestead.
Yeah.
There's still
it's still a depression there. And I don't know, must be ghosts
I don't
still
know.
there. Why?
We've
They,
dumped a bunch of dirt there.
yeah, it doesn't fill up. You can still see the depression. I don't know. So it's
And why in the world she picked that spot is beyond me, because her parents also came and their homestead is still in the family.
okay.
In fact, and then there was she had other brothers and sisters that came too. You know, it was kind of a massive migration. My grandfather came first, and he was up in the Roulette area. Well, first he worked in lumber camps in Minnesota, then he ended up by Roulette, North Dakota, where he met his wife and got married there and had their first child. In the meantime, he had gone back to Norway and brought a brother and two sisters with him. And his brother, they all were right in that area. Then he came out 30 miles north of Williston and homesteaded, and his sister homesteaded. He only homesteaded on 80 acres. She homesteaded on a quarter of land right next to it. One of the sisters stayed at Roulette. The other one married a farmer from Roulette. His brother married his sister's husband's wife. So then those kids were double cousins. He took his 11 children, 8 boys and 3 girls. They went up north of Regina because they could all homestead up there. So all the boys homesteaded, so they went up there and they ended up with 9 quarters of land.
Wow. All within their family tree.
Well, within the
Oh.
family tree. Well,
Wow. Well, that's really interesting to hear how many, I mean, you think, how many generations back, but that came originally from the home country and moved here to homestead, and how many siblings that they had in the area. So they could, hopefully they can still track everybody and where they're at.
pretty much. My grandfather's father-in-law, his name was Barrett Johnson. My grandfather was Marcus Hanson. Marcus married Barrett's oldest daughter. He had 9 children with his first wife. She passed away. Another one of his daughters and 3 of his other sons came from Roulette and came out to Zoll. He came out, met his son-in-law's sister, and married her, and had 11 more kids.
Oh my God.
So my dad always said the first batch were his aunts and uncles. The second batch he considered his cousin. And the last one of them just passed away 2 years ago.
Okay.
He lived to be 96. He was the eldest.
That's a lot of longevity and
Yeah.
that is a huge family tree. So is that one of those big oak trees that
But-
kind of split at the trunk?
But all of his children together. So 2 of them died in the Spanish flu in 1918. They died young. One died in World War I. So of the 17 that survived, he never had 17 grandchildren, and my grandmother had 5. The rest of them together never had as many. So he had more.
Yeah, more than
He had more children than he did grandchildren.
yeah. That's wild. And did you know most of them?
I knew.
Growing
Yeah,
up?
most. I knew all of them.
Did they create the population of Zoll?
No, my grandmother came out at 5. Her sister that came married the depot agent and had 2. Of the 3 brothers that came, one died in World War I. He was drafted. He never came home. The other 2 never had children. One was a World War I, was also a veteran. 3 of his sons were in World War I. None of the rest of them had more than 2. Some had 1, some had none.
Interesting. It goes, you go from such a extreme from having such a big family to some of them not even having, any children.
And he was actually considering a 3rd wife after the second one passed away. And then the kids from the first batch told him they figured maybe he better shut down the factory. But it was really,
He wore him out.
but one of his sons from the first batch, he and his wife and their daughter raised 7 of the other 9.
Oh my gosh.
They took them in and raised them
Wow. After the wife had passed.
after their mother died.
Wow.
They lived with Thomas and Selma.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
quite, and probably in not a very big house either at that
Yeah,
time.
the house is still there. Bert had set up where all of his children were going to go live, but it'd be 1 here and 2 there.
Mhm.
And then Thomas went to the administrator of the estate and said, if you will let Selma and I and our daughter live in Bert's house, we will take all the children. So they did.
Oh, very neat to be able to keep them all together
Yeah.
within
And
family.
Harry, the youngest, is the one that told me that. And he said it was a wonderful thing.
Wow. Otherwise, they would have been
They'd have been-
misplaced. And
They'd have been in the area, but it would have been really something because 2 of them were supposed to live with one of their uncles. And he could just barely take care of himself. He was a character.
what was the cause of death of the second wife? Do you know?
I think they both died. I think both wives died of cancer.
Oh, they did, huh?
Yep.
So it was not during childbirth or anything.
No, no.
Okay. Well, that's too bad. But at least they knew a family and had someone there with them.
Very good family, very close family. And they would all get together. All of them.
Would all get together and
Yep.
so. What are some of those? You guys had such a huge family and just an extended family. What were some of those family traditions that you guys would do? Mine is just the holidays. You talked about at Christmas time, but were there other things that you guys would do in the summer, or did you have family reunions?
Lately we gather at funerals and weddings, but we never did. I don't think we ever did actually have a reunion because we were all right there.
You got to see them.
Yeah, and I remember at Christmas time especially, most evenings we would go to one of the places and visit and play cards, usually just visit,
Yeah, it's in today's family situation, it's very unheard of that everybody is living so close together, but you can still talk. You have technology, FaceTime, what have you, that you can talk and see. But you miss that getting together. I remember my grandparents having card parties, and
They would.
I remember it was at least once a year, if not twice a year, that we would get together at the Grinnell Senior Center.
Yeah, but we did that later on. We'd have reunions. Usually my sister and maybe a couple of the others that were about, there were 3 of the grandchildren that were all about the same age. and they'd get it organized. And
Oh, but I remember the sisters.
yeah,
I remember all of them
Oh,
being there.
Yeah.
Because
well, everybody would come.
Olga was the oldest, right?
No, Lena.
Lena was the oldest.
12, 14, 16, 17, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26. My mom was the odd one.
Years.
Born in an odd year, and they told her the crows got her.
But she raised you, and you grew up with having good work ethic.
Sure.
And you knew what it was to.
Work fascinates me to this day. I can look at it for hours.
Can't we all? It still stays there. It doesn't go anywhere. We're still fascinated. Well, I know that you guys have talked about stories. So first off, you probably really didn't know Martin until we started in Farm Bureau. And we started because Martin was the Williams County Farm Bureau president, and then we got involved in McKenzie County. And then we got to meet.
When I would go to the meetings.
Yeah. And then I said, oh, we have family here at the meetings that we were going to, and then sit with Martin and Linda. It was always fun to hear your stories, and you would probably tease the girls a little bit.
Well, I knew Linda from way back when I was just little. She would give me one of those special things you put on your pencil.
Maybe you didn't behave well enough.
Remember, I pretended I had a learning disability and you sent me back to the room. Yes.
What's changed?
I don't want one of those special triangles.
You wanted one of the special things to hold your pencil. But you weren't allowed. Your mom kept you away from some of the cousins.
Well, I asked Martin, and I said, well, were you there at the, he goes, of course I was at every one of them. And you were at the weddings and you were at all this stuff. I said, how come I never was around you? And you said, because you were in the back telling dirty jokes, probably.
Marlene was not going to have any of that.
Yeah. And then I would have had to explain.
Now you don't have to explain the stories. He's telling his own.
Yeah.
But speaking of stories, I remember, I don't know if it was your mom that talked about it, or we talked about it at one of the Farm Bureau meetings, that so all the Haugen girls would get together and you're at the senior center and all the kids would sit, all these cousins and grandkids and so forth would eat. And you probably tell the story better. They're sitting.
So the sisters, outside of maybe Agnes and Bernice, but they always wore dresses.
Yep.
But Agnes and Bernice would wear, I remember they wear slacks.
Yep.
I remember a handful of times seeing Agnes in jeans, but it was always slacks.
Yeah.
And always put together. You never saw them messy. But Grandma always wore, and I'm sure she made the dresses. But she always wore a dress. I never saw Grandma in pants until probably towards the end when she was ill. I think she might have worn pants. But so anyway, the kids would eat, and there'd be, huge potluck, and there'd be food galore, and people would probably dish up way more than they should. And the sisters were all in the kitchen. They wouldn't eat. Everybody else ate. And then the kids would come and bring their plate and set it down. And I remember Grandma, for sure, and I'm sure the other sisters did it too, they would eat what the kids left.
Yep.
They would eat
not throw
what the
food.
kids left on their plate instead
They
of
would-
throwing it away.
And they wouldn't get a new plate. They might get a new fork, but sometimes they would, like if it was their grandchild, they would use the fork. Because it wasn't plastic forks, it was real forks. And they watched them by hand, but they would eat what was left of them.
My mother said she never remembered Grandma sitting at the table. Well, there were 9 kids. So she said the oldest 3 would have the youngest 3 sitting in their lap, feeding them.
Mm-hmm.
And then there'd be Grandpa and Ivor and the 8th. So there were all these kids at the table. And she said, I don't ever remember my mother sitting at a table.
Mm-hmm.
But if there was any left, then that's what she ate.
Yep.
That's
It's
just
crazy.
no waste.
They didn't waste anything because they grew up with nothing.
No.
I'm sure.
She said, my mother said that her and Elma, they were a year apart. They would spend their days in the summer. There wasn't any fenced pasture.
Mm-hmm.
And they would herd the cows. They'd milk in the morning, and then they would take the cows and go out to the prairie.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there was a water hole that was put in. So they had their lunch, and they walked and herded the cows and kept them out of the wheat. But because they did that, they each got a stick of gum in their lunch. The other kids didn't get gum.
Oh,
And she said if there was an orange, they would section it out, and every kid got a section of orange. You never got, at Christmas, you'd get a whole orange,
Mm-hmm.
but not otherwise. You didn't.
that was the whole thing of putting oranges in their stockings.
Yep.
Oh, very interesting.
No, it's, so my mother and her, Elma was a year younger. Julia was the third. They went and lived by Caledonia, North Dakota, with her aunt and uncle for 4 years and went to high school.
Okay.
They never saw their parents or their siblings for 4 years. And then after they graduated, they came home. Bernice, the youngest, I think was the only one that went to high school. She went to Menora and went to high school. I don't think any of the others did.
I think Grandma went to 8th. I think that was it. 6th.
8th grade.
Grandpa Wolf only went to.
Yeah. And a lot of the men never went to 8th grade.
I don't think Grandpa went to 8th grade. I think
Maybe
his,
6th.
his dad passed away, and he had to. Then he went and lived with.
With an uncle.
He lived at different places.
Yeah.
In fact, if you look in that Trail of the Pioneers, it'll tell you there's a story in there about every family in Williams County at that time.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, sure.
I think this is probably a good place for us to take a pause for this episode. We'll hit back at it and next week, and we'll continue off visiting with Martin and Linda. Thank you both for being here with us today. And if you find this interesting, make sure you tune in for next week as we continue on with our conversation. If you find that you have a farm or business family that could benefit from our farm succession planning business stories, you can go ahead and find in the show notes, you will see the storytelling worksheet that you can click on the link and use that for your family during these holiday seasons. So until next time, I will see you between the ditches.
Thanks for listening to the Pathfinder Legacy Podcast, where your future is our focus. Be sure to subscribe, follow us on social media, and visit us at pathfinderlegacy.com to start building your transition plan today.